Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly wrap. It's the 24th of July. I'm Luke Erris, and I'm joined by Mirko Kaguru today. How are you, Mick?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm going wonderfully well, mate. I'm going wonderfully well. Well, the big fella Anthony's currently away on holidays, living a life of royalty, so enjoying himself. So much credit to him. So you and I are here to hold down the fort.
He
Do you
was
want to give
he
us a
was
quick?
he was actually complaining yesterday. I exchanged a couple of texts with him. He said, "Oh, yeah, it's a bit cold here." I said, and I had a quick look. I said, "Mate, it's 23 where you are up north." And I said, Mine says currently 6, feels like 3. So go away."
Yeah, look. One thing I will say about Melbourne, yesterday the sun was out, it looked beautiful and all that, but God, it was cold, and this cold is pretty biting. I must admit that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and you're alive at the moment in back home. That's for sure.
absolutely, mate, absolutely. Now, Mirko, will you be kind enough to give us a bit of a market update? It's been a big week on markets.
Yeah, pretty sort of hectic week, and I thought we might hang in there with a bit of a green, but we've only got 3.5 hours to trade today, and in Australia we're sort of just off about zero point 0.3 for the week so far. We're off 0.74 today, and it's been look, we were sort of edging higher, but off the back of last night in the US, the markets have come off, and I mean the reality is that in Australia particularly the job numbers were actually unusually strong
Hmm.
for Australia, and they certainly were above expectations, which sort of puts a bit of an expectation that strong economy, therefore things aren't slowing down, therefore RBA likely to increase rates. They've sort of put a percentage of about 36% chance of the RBA raising rates in August, so pretty quickly over the next few weeks. Uh, if it doesn't happen in August, the market has actually factored in a rate rise by the end of the year. So I'm a little bit in the camp of be careful what you wish for there. I don't know that these numbers are really reflective of what's going on in the economy, and Victoria seemed to buck the trend on this one, but I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later and talk about the state of play here in Victoria. So looking at that in Australia, in the US, the reality is that everything's gone south as far as the Iran-US peace deal. Last I checked, the Houthis were now attacking Saudi Arabian tankers. It's game on over there again. So really disappointing to sort of see that. And we've seen oil back over $100 a barrel. And I had to fill my car this morning. I hate filling my car. It's one of my least favorite exercises. But I did watch the dollar figures actually increase twice as fast as the liters, which suggests to me that it was over $2 a liter, which it was. So not fun. And thank you very much, Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, we need to be thankful for Donald Trump, and we'll talk about him a little bit more. One thing I do want to talk about on the markets last night, just in overnight news, Tesla came out with their quarterly update from that point of view, and profits fell well short of what market analysts were anticipating. And it pointed to the first time that Tesla, it was actually the first time in 2 years that they're now burning cash, which essentially means they're spending more than they're making from that point of view. Share price was down 14% overnight, down 16.2 for the week, and down 27% for the year. Given that's all that's going on in Elon's world, running X, running SpaceX, and Tesla, not great numbers there, Mirko.
No, not at all, not at all. And if that wasn't bad enough, SpaceX was trading at, I think it was 117, $118 last night, and
And it was.
it was 110, 111 the day before. So remember, the IPO price was 135. Very interesting on the not just Tesla on its own. If you look at what's been happening with manufacturers out of Europe, so with the prestige car makers and the like, they are really struggling. And basically, they're struggling because the Chinese EV market is completely destroying all these markets.
Yeah.
They are producing a vast array of cars, and I haven't had a good look at them, but from what I hear, you're getting a lot of bang for buck if you're willing to entertain a Chinese EV vehicle. I don't know half these brands. I see cars on the road. I used to be a bit of a game for me because I'm a bit of a car buff. Is sort of driving around going, oh, there's one of those, there's that model, there's that. I've no idea half the cars that I see on the road these days.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that Tesla is feeling the pain on that. It's like, do I go and fork out, over 100 grand for a Tesla, or do I pick up a pretty good car for 40 grand, right? And that's the question that the consumers are asking themselves at the moment.
Well, and particularly in the cost of living crisis, well, when you can pick up a really good car like a build your dream for, for 40 odd grand, as an example, and then you're paying 90 grand for a Tesla or for whatever it might be, or for a European type car, it doesn't take you too long to figure out that 40 grand is better than 80 or 90.
Yeah, yeah, every day of the week, I say.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting there too is we saw that Volkswagen this week did a massive restructure of their own business from that point of view. And if the news serves me right, it was close to 100,000 people in terms of global. These are big, huge numbers that you start to wonder about. And there's no question they're part of their reasoning for this in part of the restructure. And they own brands like Porsche, Fiat, Peugeot, Citroën, and the likes. Part of the reason for the restructure is that they were saying that the Chinese and the EV market is destroying the car market itself. And think about Germany, think about their industrial power, think about their manufacturing prowess. If that's on its knees, Jesus, interesting times ahead on that one.
Yeah, for sure, yeah, and that Volkswagen number of jobs is I've seen ranges from confirmed 50 under review up to 100, up to 140,000 jobs to go. So it sort of shows the pressure that they're under. And like you said, look, they own a number of brands. So I think that we're going to see pretty much the car market turned on its head as a result of all this, and there's some really interesting stories around sort of the way that Australia has offered rebates to EV manufacturers, and how the Chinese market has actually cashed in on that. And I think their biggest problem at the moment is storing cars in Australia. Like, even if they don't sell them, it's still worthwhile picking up the rebate and letting those cars rust out in a lot somewhere.
Yeah, look, the mind boggles. The mind boggles on that one. Hey, in other breaking news, and this frustrates me no end. We've seen Donald Trump reintroduce tariffs overnight. And all of a sudden, he's decided to apply a new tariff to Australia of 12.5% on all Australian exports. So the original deal was 10. We've now gone to 12.5. There's no rhyme or reason behind his logic. There's no thinking behind this. Ultimately, Donald Trump sees this as him winning the world, not really understanding that the American consumer is the one who suffers the most from this point of view. And clearly, people who are exporting goods into the United States, obviously they're seeing their prices rise from that end. Look, we've been around long enough. We understand what global prosperity is. We understand how the world works in terms of, if you start to put a tax on something, invariably it makes things more expensive from that point of view. This can't be a good thing from a global perspective, Donald Trump aside, surely.
Disaster. And all I'd say is, lucky we're an ally. Look, it could be worse, guys. Canada's been hit with a 50% tariff on all goods. So not flash.
No, definitely not. And look, extending the Donald Trump discussion on that a little bit further, you mentioned before that Iran and the situation there is getting worse. Well, it's definitely got worse, with Donald Trump now contemplating, magnifying the force being used against Iran from that point of view. The situation is going from bad to worse. That memorandum of understanding just shows you what a fallacy that was. And to be honest with you, to think that one individual is causing complete global chaos is incredibly frustrating. And yet the market, interestingly enough, is holding up, and it's not doing anything crazy at this particular moment in time. Is this the way markets should behave, Mirko, or is this a false sense of security we're in, do you think?
You can't help think there is a bit of false sense of security, because logic would tell us that the market should not be behaving like this. And I think that investors have manage to sort of brush off all this noise and all this geopolitical tension around the world and sort of keep getting on with it. I don't know that if we do get to a point though where the market actually goes, no, this is not acceptable. We have an issue here. Last night in the US, there was actually a vote, and the House in the US voted to end the war, but the Republicans in the Senate voted to keep the war going. So, and it was a very tight vote. So I'm really surprised at where this is heading, given that we're so close to midterm elections. We're only a few months away of midterms in the US, and I would have thought that President Trump does not want this as an issue to be discussed come November, I believe that is.
Which probably explains why he gave that speech last week in terms of the fixing of elections and the stolen elections and God knows what. I guess he's just trying to sow doubt and concerns into the midterms, I guess, from that point of view, because clearly his economic policies and clearly his geopolitical policies aren't working at this moment in time. So
the art of deflection, yeah.
Look, call me a cynic, but you watch him on TV, you watch how he speaks, you watch him being a goose in every conceivable direction. You start to bore of this stuff, and eventually, I think people with brains bore. Clearly, it hasn't happened yet everywhere, but I think in time that'll come. Now, let's talk about Victoria, my friend, because you did mention an improving jobs number from that point of view, but not in Victoria. We saw that go the other way. Whilst the rest of the economy is moving, it looks like Victoria's really struggling a bit.
I'm really trying to be parochial and upbeat about our state, but I am really struggling, and and the numbers don't lie. So yeah, like I said, the jobless rate that came in for Australia was pretty good, and at a national level we were sort of sitting at 4.4, but the Victorian jobless number has gone from 4.9 to 5.1. So that's the highest level since October 21. Which was, that was when we were entering, I think, lockdown number 5 or 6, during COVID. So, look, things don't bode well here in Victoria, unfortunately, and there's a vast amount of reasons for that. But we really need to look at ourselves here and sort of say, why are we different to what's happening in the other states of Australia? And I can tell you why, because the policy decision making and the state of play here is a disaster. So I do worry about Victoria genuinely.
Yeah, I do too, and I think we're in this ugly position where we know the election's coming up in November. So we seem to be we seem to have a government which is struggling with paralysis and any sort of forward thinking from that point of view. We have an opposition which is coming from a very low base in terms of that. And so I guess people are a little bit concerned and reluctant. And then we also have, the threat of one nation, I guess, from that point of view, which is a new dynamic into this picture, in the sense that, there's a lot of grievance, there's a lot of angry people and all that kind of stuff, which is wonderful. And I get all that. And I accept the fact that, you deserve to be angry and so on. But the reality there is we still need policies and we still need ideas which are going to get us out of this proverbial mess, because one thing I do know, Mirko, is you can't tax people to oblivion. And, with land tax, with all the things that the Victorian government is trying to do at this moment in time, they are removing the desire or the incentive out of the system, let alone what the federal government's doing, but definitely here in Victoria at the moment. If you were a corporate and thinking about setting up shop in Victoria, you'd be having reservations as to why you would do it.
Oh, look, if even the desire and the willingness to go and invest by businesses and the rest of it, when the confidence is not there, when you're basically being set up with a whole heap of roadblocks and basically set up to fail, why would you even start, right? And I look at the policy making that's going on. Yeah, be careful what you wish for,
And then to also be told how to run your business, which is the intriguing thing. Last time I looked, I thought we were a capitalist society. That's a separate argument. Standard of living shock. This one, while their Australians have been arguing about the fact that they're feeling poorer, and they backwards, not forwards, and this harder, and despite doing all the things that feels like right from that end, yet when they look at their hip pocket, they feel like they're going backwards. And we now actually have a report or some research which actually verifies that.
Yeah, look, we're the headline rate was that the standard of living was the worst it has been in this century, and so when you look at it, GDP per person, the numbers come out as has risen by 4% this decade. So the 2020s are sort of on par with the 1910s if you look at that, and that's got a lot to do with productivity, which is stagnant. That's been generous, probably going backwards. Uh, Compounded by the pandemic, energy crises, and the like. So I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and I talking to some clients yesterday, and you can't help feel that our responsibility, when we landed here, was leaving the place in a better position for the next generation. I don't know that we're going to achieve that. I really hope we do, and I'd be so disappointed if we didn't. But I don't think that we will the way we're going.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on that one. I do think we run the risk of being one of the first generations to be handing over the chalice to the next generation, where they're actually going to be worse off. And I don't know, yeah, I don't know if that was the intention, because previous generations didn't do that, and it looks like that we are going to be the first ones to do it. So that's not a good thing. But on some good news, the World Cup finally came to an end last week, and it was a terrific month of festivity and football and all that kind of stuff, and the world coming together. And one of the great things about the World Cup, and what I enjoyed the most, was the fact that politics to the side and all the rubbish to the side in terms of all the stupidity that's going on in the world at the moment. We came together as countries, we came together as nations and cheered our near and dearest on, and supported teams from that point of view. It was actually nice to see that occur, I thought. And I thought from that perspective, the World Cup was a raging success. Your views?
Yeah, no, well, it was, and from an Australian perspective, a good mate of mine, the media manager for the Socceroos, and actually congratulated him on the work that they did as a team to actually unite Australia, which is something that we desperately need in a time that we sort of find ourselves in now. So, yeah, the World Cup has an ability to do that. And I think when you said in good news, the good news is I may actually get some sleep now too. It'll be handy.
No, absolutely. And how good was Spain? Spain were extraordinary. I must admit, I did really enjoy the fact, because it was only about 5 or 6 days earlier that Donald Trump absolutely lambasted Spain. He said that they were a terrible friend and a terrible partner, and he was going to restrict trades. He was going to do all that kind of stuff. And the mea culpa moment was, mate, you have to hand over the cup to them. Yet the goose stayed on the stage. He wouldn't get off it. What a narcissist.
Yeah, I saw, and look, the minute I saw him walking out onto the ground to do the presentation, I actually turned the tally off, so I actually missed the presentation. But someone did tell me that the young player, Yamal, the absolute superstar from Spain, everyone shook his hand except him. He just gave it a bit of peace, brother, and just walked
Yeah.
off. And
I,
he was completely stunned. I thought that was very cool.
what I thought was most amusing was in the FIFA clip straight afterwards, from that point of view, where they've got the team with the trophy standing up and all that. Trump had been taken out of those photos. So on the Instagrams, on all the postings, on all the socials that came out, no evidence of Donald Trump actually standing there, which is probably the way it should have been from the start, mate, because he's got nothing to do with it. It just tells you how little and small-minded the man is, which is a shame. So
Don't be surprised if FIFA has him in the team of the World Cup too somehow. Don't worry, like
now, mate,
nothing ceases to amaze me.
now, and conscious of time, but in some extraordinary news, and I've got to raise this because it's been a long, long, long winter. The Essendon Football Club finally saluted. What a
There
win
we
it
go.
was. What a
There
win
we
it
go.
was. All I can tell you, Mick, is I had plans for a September holiday, but I'm sitting back going, maybe I need to cancel, because I can smell September in the air.
Maybe you should just stick with your plans, mate. Don't go paying any change fees with the airlines anytime soon.
Mate, we were superb. It would have
Um,
to have been.
see, folks, this is what I have to put up with, right? Can you imagine if they actually won 4 or 5 games on the trot? I'd never hear the end of it.
Mate,
But
it was
yeah,
one of the.
I'll give you your moment. You'll be back to earth by Monday morning, and
Oh,
everything, and the world will realign, and we'll be in a good spot.
Mate, we're playing Hawthorn this week, so mate, imagine if we do win that one, mate. You won't be able to contain us. I'm
I
telling you that
will
now.
not be on weekly wrap if that happens. I'm out.
Fair enough too, mate. Fair enough too. And what have you got planned this weekend, mate? Anything exciting?
Oh, a bit of work in the garden this weekend. It's all the leaves are done and dusted, so my fight with the leaves finish up this week, and a bit of tidy up, and I think a bit of relaxing. What about
No.
yourself, mate?
No, I'm hoping to go for a hike tomorrow morning. It
Beautiful.
needs, yeah, hoping to get out there, do a bit of a hike. I think we've got it's a 10K to a 15K course. We're not sure. We're just playing around with what we do. So we'll do that tomorrow morning, and then I think I'm going to take you up and just have a quiet weekend. I'm in the process of reading Regime Change, which talks about the Trump 2.0 in terms of that. Fascinating read at this particular moment in time. It's a behind-the-scenes expose as to whether or not it's true or not. We'll argue about that later on, but just in terms of just getting the insights in terms of what's going on in that administration and the chaos behind it, absolutely.
That's the one that calls it the imperial presidency or something, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, yeah,
Pretty
gotcha.
much, yeah. And look, and the good news is Jonathan Swan, who's an Australian journalist, who's built up a cult following in the United States. And interestingly enough, he was the one who did that fascinating interview with Donald Trump back in COVID, if you remember. Despite the way Jonathan has worked with Trump, Trump actually likes him. So he continually brings him in for interviews, and Jonathan is a cracking journalist and doing a wonderful job in that space. So kudos to Jonathan too. Good to see that he's doing.
Might grab that book off you when you finish.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, look, to you, mate, have a wonderful weekend. To our wonderful team, as always, thank you for all the work that you do, and to our wonderful clients, never change. Keep on making us smile as you always do, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
See you, folks.